You may not have thought of it from this particular angle, but one of the things that went on was when you discovered that you had this disorder, one of the things that might have gone on is a little bit of grief. It's like maybe in the beginning, before you actually had the diagnosis, you were in denial that that was a possibility. And then when you found out, by God, I do have it, that it's like, why me? Why did I have to have this type of outcome in life? And why did I have to endure all these twists and turns? Life has been such a struggle from day one. And I've have to pretend like I'm somebody else. Who wouldn't be pissed? You didn't sign up for autism. It was imposed upon you by the universe. How would the NT wife view mind blindness? If she doesn't know what's really going on, if he doesn't understand your opinion and he tries to make you wrong and tries to convince you that he's right and that your opinion is kind of stupid, you would download that, justifiably so, as he's controlling, he doesn't respect my viewpoint, and so on. If he has emotions blindness, the NT wife would download that. He doesn't care about how I feel. It doesn't matter. I'm not important to him. And again, it's justifiable. It's understandable. With the executive functions, if, for example, I'm just going to use the working memory one. If he has a working memory deficit and you deliver a message and he only can listen to 80% of your message and probably only understands 60% of the 80% that he listened to, and probably only retained 40%, and probably only follow through with 20% of what you were asking, and you get very little return on your investment of time and energy because of his working memory deficit, you might understandably download that as the things that I need him to do or want him to do or desire him to do, it's just not important to him. His special interest is more important than the things that I would like. All those three things, mind blindness, emotions blindness, executive function deficits, result in the fourth and final, which would be anxiety. With those first three, he, in this case it's a he, or if we have a she in here, if the female in here is with ASD, just replace the pronoun with she, will have a lot of unpredictability in his life. And when you have a lot of unpredictability in your life, it's very stressful, and you try to create as much predictability as possible, just keep from going crazy. And how would you do that? You would have a lot of rules, you would crave structure, you would thrive on routine, you would hate change, especially surprise change. And the NT understandably may download that as he's very rigid. His meltdowns and shutdowns are an indication that he just doesn't care about the marriage. He does these things, and I'm not saying that every behavior problem that you witness in him can be directly tied to a trait of the disorder. This is not a pass. I'm not giving him an excuse. Oh, he has these traits, you're just going to have to deal with it. But a good 80% of the most problematic behaviors that you've witnessed are directly related somehow to the traits of the disorder. And you may have downloaded that, and you've made a lot of false assumptions. You, the NTYs, you've made a lot of false assumptions. And you have understandably tried to rectify the problems and pull him back into the relationship and get the connection and reestablish trust and a bond and everything like that. Unfortunately, if you do what most of the NTs do that I talk to, even though they had a good message, their message got severely lost because either she brought up too many topics in one sitting, or she was angry at the time, or she was being very vague. She was talking about feelings. Her message gets lost and ends up pushing him away even further. So you get the opposite of what you were shooting for.
One way for the person on the spectrum to reduce anxiety is to have rules, strict routines, and lots of structure in his life. This often appears to others as very rigid behavior, and this rigidity is the most common reason for relationship problems. Reasons for rigidity include the following: anxiety about a current or upcoming event, no matter how trivial it might appear to you, any violation of a rule or ritual, changing something from the way it is supposed to be, immediate gratification of a need, misunderstanding or misinterpretation of others' actions, OCD, perfectionism, sensory sensitivities, and the need to avoid or escape from a non-preferred activity, the need to control a situation, the need to engage in or continue a preferred activity, usually an obsessive action or fantasy. Transitioning from one activity to another, this is usually a problem because it may mean ending an activity before he's finished with it. Understanding your partner involves knowing the traits of the disorder and how they manifest themselves in everyday behaviors. How does he view the world, think about things, and react to what is going on in his environment? Those are key questions to get answers to. Unfortunately, people with Asperger's and high-functioning autism are often accused of being inconsiderate, selfish, uncaring, or insensitive. It's a cross many of these individuals have to bear. The main trait associated with the disorder is the problem of human connectedness. The term used to describe connection is reciprocity. This refers to the person's ability to engage others in a way that makes them feel connected. People with Asperger's and high-functioning autism often lack reciprocity to one degree or another. For example, they may seem either distant, stiff, or in other ways unconnected. They may have difficulty reading subtle gestures and facial changes. They may have difficulty interpreting subtleties in language, such as irony or sarcasm. They may not read or respond, as most people do, to small changes in body posture or gestures. And they may have difficulty maintaining eye contact in social conversations. Some of these individuals not only seem detached, but come across as being uninterested in having relationships with others. For example, they may wish to connect with others, but simply don't know how. They may lack empathy. They may have very little interest in the feelings and experiences of others. They may have feelings for others, but can't convey those feelings effectively. And they may have difficulty deriving pleasure from connecting with others, learning about them, talking with them, or sharing experiences. It's not just a question of an inability to read social cues. There is an output problem. In other words, they have difficulty knowing how to engage and maintain relationships with others. And it's also an internal problem. That is, he has no labels for feelings, and social and emotional information is confusing and absent. So, is your partner on the autism spectrum truly a jerk? Or is it a deficit in reciprocity? Probably the latter.
Let's say that she talked you into going to some kind of a family event, some kind of a cookout or whatever, a reunion or whatever, and you went and you kind of got burned out with the idle chit-chat pretty quickly, and you kind of went off over there away from the crowd and got on your phone and kind of entertained yourself. Just made that up. Okay? So now, on the way home, she's going to engage in this false assumption stuff again. Well, I don't know why you can't participate. I don't know why we were over there and we were talking and you just left and whatever. You can imagine what you're going to receive, right? So what would be going on in the case where he just was bored to death with chit-chat and it was no fun to him and he went over there and entertained himself? We would want to think, okay, was that a mind blindness thing, an emotions blindness thing, an executive function thing, or an anxiety thing? We could call it an anxiety thing. And this is a hell of a paradox. You wouldn't think that things that are boring raise your anxiety. I'm talking about specifically people on the autism spectrum. You wouldn't necessarily equate boring with anxiety. There is a direct link between something that's exceedingly boring and your anxiety. You like to engage in your special interests, and you can be hyper-focused on that special interest for extended periods of time because it keeps your mind going. It is actually a reward for your brain because we're focused on this and my wheels are turning. When you don't have something that's fairly exciting to you, you get bored, and boredom is painful to people on the autism spectrum. That's not an exaggeration. I'll repeat it. Boredom is exceedingly painful to people on the autism spectrum. So we'll use that. So I'm going to plug it into the 5 things here. Number 1, if you can see the notes, it's let her know the trait that I have. So I'm going to say, well, as you may know, hopefully I have anxiety, and I was honestly kind of bored with the chit chat, and it was kind of raising my anxiety, and so I went over there to distract myself because I didn't want to be inappropriate in the group. That's step 1. Step 2 is how she's downloading it. I know that may have downloaded to you as I was trying to be antisocial, or that I didn't care about what people were saying, or that I wanted to go home early, perhaps. Maybe that's how you were downloading it. Step 3, what's really going on? What's really going on is boredom, believe it or not, is really a source of stress for me. Number 4, but I still love you and care about you and want to meet your needs. Number 5, so it would be helpful to me if in the future we could not linger at these gatherings for 3 hours. I'm willing to tough it out for an hour. I'm not going to be much good after that 60-minute mark. So in this way, you're letting her know what's really going on so that she doesn't make the false assumption, and you're offering a solution. You're not saying, well, but it would be helpful to me if you never ever asked me to go anywhere again. That's not what we're shooting for. It would be helpful to me if we went there and I knew that there was going to be a time limit, because in times past when we go somewhere, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's 4 hours, and I don't know how. So it would be helpful to me if I knew we're going to arrive at such and such a time and we're going to be leaving at such and such a time, in which case I can tough it out at that point. The question is, do you have any tactics for me to practice to be more in tune with her or more present to anticipate her needs wants? I always feel like I'm on high alert and trying to be perceptive, but I seem to always get blindsided by things like this. Well, if she is wanting you to be more in tune and anticipate her wants and needs, then she hasn't been watching any of my videos, because at the risk of sounding sarcastic, that's an unreasonable expectation, because one of the things that comes with ASD level 1, 2 and 3 too, is due to mind blindness, alexithymia, executive function deficits, and anxiety, the person on the autism spectrum has a hard time predicting outcomes. Okay, so with things that involve social and emotional nuances and social skills, in this case, he will have a hard time predicting outcomes and predicting the possible likely future. See, you can predict that tomorrow morning the sun's going to come up. But your NT wife with high in social and emotional intelligence, she can predict what so-and-so is going to say in response to what she is going to say. She already knows how this person is going to respond and almost nails it ahead of time. So you're not going to be able to, quote, anticipate her needs or wants. So your wife, hope she's watching, she needs to tell you what she needs and wants instead of making you guess. So he will tend to turn his emotions way down, not completely off. It's come from many years of, honestly, emotions getting in the way of their logical thinking. So it's not that he doesn't have any room for emotions. In most cases, if he were to be honest, in most cases, he doesn't see any need for emotions. He might even go so far as to say they just kind of get in the way of completing tasks, because he is very task-oriented. So his motto might be remove the emotions and accomplish the task more efficiently. The emotions are messy and they get in the way of logical thinking. The NTYs in here are emotions experts. So you see there's one hell of a contrast there. And so there has been relationship stress for how long? Year, 5, 10? Everybody in here is experiencing relationship stress due to the neurodiverse difficulties. The NT wife, when she's dealing with stress, she will tend to, not 100% of the time, but she will tend to implode. And that could look like sulking or depression, just to grab two out of the air real quick. He will tend to explode. And I'm not saying he never does shutdowns, but he will be the one that will, and I know both parties can explode, but his preferred method as an anxiety reduction strategy, his preference will be to explode most of the time. During relationship stress, she will want to talk about the problems, and she'll want to share and talk about feelings. And she prefers connection during crisis, if we want to call it crisis. He doesn't. He's out of touch with his feelings, and he's way out of touch with your feelings. So if you want to have feelings discussions, you've automatically lost it being some kind of resolution. He's not going to want to talk about the problems. He doesn't want to share emotions, and he prefers, quite honestly, most of the time prefers disconnection during crisis. During crisis, she will want to bond, associate, seek support. He will want to disassociate and and he may end up doing some version of a meltdown or a shutdown. The moral to this story is you can see why there is this issue going on. And I'm not trying to get him off the hook when I say this. If somebody asks me, which they have not, what is the number one out of the list of problems, and there are many, what is the number one issue or the root cause? If there is a root cause, what would it be? It would be his anxiety around relationship difficulties. If he has ASD level 1, he has mind blindness issues, emotions blindness issues, we already talked about this last week, executive function deficits, all of which create huge anxiety. What I run into most often, if he were to be honest with himself, he often feels confused and insecure in the relationship. This causes a lot of anxiety. He's always in the process of alleviating anxiety, either with a shutdown or a meltdown or just staying busy outside of the relationship. But unfortunately, and now this is the message to the guys in here, your anxiety reduction strategies have, in most cases, made your anxiety worse because you just kicked the can down the road. And so all of these things that relationship difficulties that you might have been trying to avoid, they accumulate, they don't disappear. They build up and they pile up, and she gets more resentful and bitter and complaining, etc. And why wouldn't she? Which then makes you, the guy on the spectrum, feel even more unsafe in the relationship. And so we get into this loop. One of the problems that you ladies are having is he's got this very narrow range of interests. It's about the size of the little hole that you stick the thread in the sewing needle. And anything that falls outside of that, which is about 99% of what you want, he's not going to have a whole lot of vested interest in it because it's not even remotely in his special interest area. In fact, it's worse than that. It falls into the category that he has called boring, or too much work, or I don't think that needs to be done at all.
Hey ladies, this is a quick message to the NT wives out there. Hi Quinn. If your autistic husband's behavior is confusing the hell out of you, and you have a lot of questions and you want a lot of answers, you may want to join my NT Ladies Only group. We do it on Skype. The link is below this video, okay? What are you waiting for? Hey guys and gals, this is Mark, and I have a message to the neurotypical wives out there. How many times have you said, or at least thought, I do all the relationship work? There is two main reasons for that. One, way back in the day, you decided to do most of the relationship work. Nobody put a gun to your head to do it. You opted to do it. And then your husband just decided, well, if she's going to do all this work, I don't really need to pick up the slack. If she's going to do 90%, I'll do 10. It's kind of like having your teenage son and you go in and you clean his bedroom, every day. He doesn't need to clean it. And then when you get tired of cleaning his bedroom and start complaining about it and try to get him to clean his own bedroom, how hard is that? He's used to not cleaning it. It's almost impossible. You've already created a monster in that case. So that's point number one. While you're doing all the relationship work, you decided to do it, okay? And when you decide to not do so much relationship work, guess who has to pick up the slack by default? Your autistic husband does. The second reason that you're supposedly doing all the relationship work, which you probably are, is because your relationship work is highly ineffective. You're having to work exceedingly hard because your method of work does not yield much in the way of a desirable outcome. Think of it like this. What if I asked you to dig a hole 3 foot wide and 6 foot deep and I gave you a spoon to do it with? You'd be over there digging for months and months and I'm doing all the work here. Why is this so hard? You have an ineffective tool. Okay? So your relationship work is highly ineffective. And so you get maybe a few inches forward, but then a few inches backwards again. So it's not accomplishing things very effectively, and it's not accomplishing things very quickly. So what do instead? You come up with a shovel to dig your hole. You come up with a better way to do relationship work. What kind of work am I supposed to do? That's going to be something that would need to be done in therapy, because I don't know what method you're using or methods, and I don't know what his wants or needs are, where his weaknesses are, what he needs to do in the way of picking up the slack. So there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer in this YouTube video. I do have groups. The links are below this video if you want to join. So consider doing that. They're starting soon. And we will look at how to do proper, more effective, and relationship work that's not time-consuming and energy-sucking.
Hey, I got a quick message to all you men on the autism spectrum there. Come here, look. Mother's Day is coming up. Today's the 10th. You have 2 days to go get your wife some gifts. You're going to give those gifts to the children so the children can give them to your wife. Now, I know that your wife is technically not your mom, although she might say, well, I kind of feel like his mom. But anyway, it's your job to go get some gifts to give to the kids so the kids can give those gifts to your wife, right? Flowers, cards, chocolate, a trip to Nantucket, I don't know, something like that, okay? Get busy. Time's running out.
Hey guys, this is Mark. Click on the join button underneath any of my videos, then click on members only videos, and then click on join. And for $9.99 a month, you'll have access to members only videos, which are excerpts from previous workshops I've conducted for NT partners, ASD partners, and the neurodiverse couple. New videos will be uploaded weekly.